to start asking questions, because a lot of, or some African communities, or if you grew up in some communities, they don't allow you to ask questions regarding anything, which is sad. But as we move forward, we're going to talk about the herbal part of it,
Yeah.
the herbal medicine, and the fact that we should definitely reconnect to the herbal plants, because from my perspective, pharmaceuticals, for me, it's a business to a lot of companies, right? And the fact that Africa has been named or actually labeled as impoverished, and we need a lot of aid, we actually do not need aid at all, because I believe we're the most wealthiest nation of all time.
Yeah.
It's just propaganda, and the pharmaceutical sector has become a business. And the fact that, let me bring this up about the US aid, and the fact that they removed themselves from actually giving aid to Africa, there's a lot of African people who are actually mad or sad about that. But you shouldn't at all, because even Natalie Yam was actually excited during the conference. Like, you shouldn't. And she actually said that there's no African leaders talking about it. Why? Because I believe there was a lot of people, or actually leaders, who are actually earning from that, on from the for their own interests. That's my perspective about it, and I'm confident about saying that. But let's go back to the reason why we should learn about herbal medicine, or the herbal plants, and how actually they're very, very effective. They're super effective, because I believe from the creator, he's the one who actually created all these things. And I believe he created everything, which is literally super attached to us, to bring healing to us. Joshua Maponger mentions that. Yeah. So you have so much knowledge about herbal medicine.
Yeah, I mean, you shared a lot of great perspectives yourself in
Thank you.
relation to just the history of medicine in general,
Yeah.
either pharmaceutical or um, medicinal,
Yes.
like in terms of allopathic, and just the homeopathy.
Right.
And so growing up for me, because I like to share like my personal experiences, because
Okay.
that is something that no one can ever take away
That
from
is
you.
true.
You know what I mean? Because it's not my opinion, it's
Yeah.
my life experience.
Yes.
And so growing up, my grandparents, every summer from school, they used to give us treatments.
Okay.
We had to go through massages. We had to take bitter herbs.
Okay.
We had to do a course of treatments for the time period that we were on vacation from school.
Right.
So that was my first introduction to herbal medicine.
Right.
Though I didn't like the bitter ones that we used to take. I always loved the sweet ones. Yeah. Like there's a bitter medicine, like they'll make you take it, it'll make you throw up.
Okay.
And then also there's something called enema.
Enema.
Enema is where they clean your intestines.
Okay.
So my grandparents, they used to make us take enemas to help us with our intestines.
Okay.
So they make this herbal concoction, slightly not very hot, but just room temperature. And then they have this container with like a tube, and they insert the tube in your rectum, and then they put the medicine in the container. The medicine goes inside your intestines, and then you go and you poop. So that medicine clean any toxins in your intestinal walls. It cleans you out. It flushes you.
Right.
And so growing up from when I was like 7, 8 years old, that was like a normal thing. So that was my introduction to like, herbal medicine.
Yes.
So my view of it is not to say I'm against pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
It's more so I grew up in this experience. Even though they'll then go before school, you got to get the vaccines, you got to do all these things.
Yeah.
So they never teach us against pharmaceuticals, but at the same time they taught us what they know to be right.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I think that was the first step to having a knowledge of like herbal medicine from the ancient perspective. Now, like in terms of pharmaceuticals, you have that within the ecosystem of how
Yes.
we live, and I
Yes.
think over time
Mm-hmm.
we have lost so much knowledge
Right.
of ancient
Yes.
that you would have to almost go back and learn the
Mm-hmm.
ancient ways while still improvising
Right.
with this.
You have to be super intentional about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
because what happened is, like, for example, let's say there are some people who might be extreme to
Mm-hmm.
where they're so against pharmaceuticals per se that they will allow someone to die
Yes.
because
Yes.
they're they don't have like a solution.
At all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If within your belief system you have a solution to
Mm-hmm. Whatever works for
whatever
you.
works for you,
Yes.
then so be it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you don't, if in your mind you just against this but you have no solution,
Right.
then to me that's not wisdom.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say with that.
Okay.
Because what happened is we're so ingrained into that ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to go and gain a knowledge and then apply wisdom to your own
Yes.
life. You know what I mean? Because I can't necessarily tell
course.
people like, hey,
It's the same way
yeah,
regarding this conversation about reconnecting to our African roots. There's some who are not gonna buy it.
yeah,
Like, no.
definitely,
Right, because they've not had that experience, like maybe moving or traveling to Africa. It's the same way as you're talking about the herbal ancient medicines and the pharmaceuticals, and the fact that maybe someone has never asked themselves that question, they'll still continue using the pharmaceutical way,
yeah.
regardless.
And,
Yeah.
and the thing is, you find villages where
Mm.
there's not even one hospital
Yeah.
or clinic.
Yes.
And those people, like, I visited the Maasai's when
Mm.
I went to Maasai's twice.
Okay.
And the first time when I went, the brother, you can find on my YouTube channel,
Right.
he was showing us the different roots. He was taking us to different trees
Mm-hmm.
and show us how they utilize the trees to heal their bodies because they don't have like alternatives. That's
Right.
their only way, and it works for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But someone else will come and say, no, you need to have this because that's what works and yours don't work.
Right.
But when that has been working for centuries, for
Mm.
millennials, you know what I mean? And so I think that there's a downside to modernization
Mm.
where I would say the downside of it is the Western mentality is that this African way is not suitable.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not conducive, but that has been the way for like
Has always been the way
You know what I
before
mean?
colonization.
Yeah.
The last question before we wind up,
Mhm.
you mentioned about the transatlantic trade when you visited
Yeah, Senegal,
Senegal,
Lord Island, yeah.
right? And I believe that's the time when that was happening and our cultures and tradition was scraped off.
Mhm.
Literally, like it was bad. That's why I believe a lot of the knowledge right now, because our ancient ancestors, the one who held that knowledge about relearning and teaching us, they were basically taken away. And I believe that's where our culture and traditions actually melted away, right? And it's super important because, as you said, it used to work for us. It used to work for us before anything else. And I believe it's very important, if you're really intentional about it, if you can relearn and learn more about your culture, tradition, and how Africa used to be before colonization.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. And even to that, if you would like go to Central America, where they
Yeah.
have the Africans there, called Garifunas.
Okay. Oh, hot for
Yeah.
yes.
Garifunas are actually a mix of Arawaks.
Mm-hmm.
Arawaks were the natives who lived on that land before
Okay.
colonization. They're like similar skin complexion like yourself.
Okay.
Like you can pass to be like a Colombian or like an African garifuna or some sort.
Okay, Garifuna.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
so there's like that interbreeding of
Okay.
Arawaks and
Yeah.
Africans
Okay.
also. And so many of those individuals still maintain that what they call aboriginal
Okay.
medicine.
Yes. Which is
So
amazing.
yeah, so
Yeah.
so I would not necessarily say that because of this transatlantic slave trade
Mm.
the knowledge is lost, because that knowledge was passed down
Yeah.
the even through slavery. That knowledge was
I believe
still
so.
being applied.
Do you think it's
Yeah,
not really pushed?
which, well, what is not being pushed?
The narrative about, not the narrative actually, the herbal medicine knowledge, really, because you have to be really super intentional to go and
Yeah, of
research
course,
about
because
it.
it's not mainstream. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like I said, we live in this ecosystem
Mm.
of the aboriginal
Yeah.
way of life, and then you have the modernization
Mm.
of, pharmaceuticals.
Right.
And so pharmaceuticals is pretty much mainstream.
Mm.
And so that's not necessarily the
Yeah.
aboriginal medicine is definitely not being pushed
Mm-hmm.
within the mainstream. But at the same time, you may grow up with parents,
Yes.
like, for example, during like the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
like our parents was drinking garlic and
Right.
all
The
kind
ancient
of, yeah,
ways.
the ancient ways. I think
Yes.
there are time periods where even I would even go as far as to say I know some friends and families that work in hospitals,
Right.
but they were still taking the moringa tea
Yeah.
before they go to work at the hospital.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I share with you, like, even though pharmaceuticals is there, it doesn't, because the roots is stronger.
Yes.
Even the people who are working
Mm-hmm.
at those hospitals are still doing like the gingers and
Yes.
the so many
And
other
then
stuff.
the
They just don't
supplements, right?
push it
Yes.
because
Because
mind you, a lot of people also are working in those places
yes.
because you make
Yes.
money.
Facts.
They went to school,
Yes.
they would get their degrees, they want to make a lot of money. But if you was to sit down with them privately,
Mm-hmm.
or you was to go into their house, you would see all the herbal supplements in their cabinets
Yes.
and stuff like that. And so that's why, like, sometimes you just have to know people,
Mm.
because you can't just go to the doctor's office and think that the doctor actually believe
Mm-hmm.
everything that he's actually making you do.
It's a business.
Because when you go and you know him personally,
Yes.
outside it's like, man, listen, man, I'm in bed with my wife, man. The thing is not moving right. What can I take to then I tell you, go get some ginseng,
Ashwagandha.
get some ashwagandha, do some exercise, you feel me? Like, I mean, that's something
Right.
that cannot be taken away from
I
you.
agree.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's in you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amazing. We're literally winding up, Musa. I don't want to finish, but we have to. Really.
Yeah,
This
it's
has
cool.
been such an amazing conversation, high level
Definitely.
conversation here on the African podcast, African Icon podcast. I hope you're excited. I hope you feel like
Definitely.
you've shared enough. And mostly, I'm really excited about the fact that you took a leap of faith to basically take this adventure to Africa and basically sharing your experience to the people all over, because some people have to see to believe,
Definitely.
Yeah, so your last take before we
Um,
wind up.
Well, I really appreciate you for allowing me the space to
Sure.
be able to have this conversation.
Ubuntu.
I would say, like, this is like one of my first
Hey.
like podcast
Mhm.
conversations since I've been on this trip in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I just been enjoying life here, and really I haven't really been talking so much about the herbal medicines. There's just so much life in Africa. I
Mhm.
just been enjoying the food, just everything that comes with living here.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was definitely, I would say, a great experience for me to articulate my life to the world,
Yeah.
and to share a little bit of what I've experienced
Right.
in my short time living on this earth. And I hope that this conversation would
Mhm.
serve as a positive
Of course.
experience to a lot of people,
Right.
and it will encourage people to just be authentic. If there is
Mm.
anything that I can take away from this, is just be authentic.
I love that.
And you don't have to necessarily um, be against
Mm.
someone in order to feel like you're living life. You
Right.
can be authentically you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key, because sometimes when you start focusing so much on the negative,
Yes.
you lose sight of the fact that, like, there is so much life to live.
There
You know what I mean?
is.
And I think that's what blocks a lot of people. It's
Mm.
just the negativity,
Right.
you know what? Yeah, like, let's live. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
It's so true. And when you're living authentically, you're actually vibrating on a very high frequency.
Definitely.
Yeah, I learned that about that
Definitely.
literally. But thank you so much again. This You're so much welcome. It has been amazing. I loved it, and let's continue spreading all the positivity about our African culture and reconnecting with our African roots. Remember, you are the greatest thing to have ever happened to this universe. Much love, and I'm sending you so much love and light. Bye bye.
Welcome back, guys, once again to Kixkeya Global Village. I'm here in Stone Town, Tanzania, and so Zanzibar, Stone Town. And so right now I'm getting ready to have my meal. So this is a nice, amazing Swahili dish. And of course, this is lemon and mint um, juice. And so I'm having some Swahili dishes, ugali, rice, greens, and chicha. And so that's what we have in here, some beans. And so yeah, so I'm getting ready to enjoy this amazing meal here today. And so I'm here at Stone Town. This is more like a tourist area in Stone Town. And one thing I realized